Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hugh Virtual Chat. Well, we are going now into our 34th show, so says my producer. So pretty amazing. I'm going to get right into it. We've got some amazing guests today, and I think a story that you really want to hear, and another, I guess, virtual event that's really going to inspire young women. So let's bring all of our amazing women to the Hugh Virtual Chat right now. Hey, hello. Hey, Pam. And Diane, I see you. Well, a picture of Diane right now. And hey, it's Eileen, right? Nice to meet you, Eileen. And oh, thank you so much, Rochelle. Good to see you. So like everything else when we're in this virtual land, there's always technical problems. So, we made it. Everything's great. Everything's good. I'm thinking Marley is going to join us shortly, but you know how Marley is. She was always running a few minutes late, but that's okay, Marl. Love you. Anyways, I want to actually first open up with Rochelle. Rochelle, I received an email and it was like, wow, this sounds like an amazing event. And then read like, due to what we're living in now with the pandemic, you know, things have definitely changed, but I really wanted you to come today and share and talk about this because I think it truly is a very important event.
Thank you so much for having me on your show once again. It's always a pleasure to get with the Hugh crew and talk about exciting new initiatives. And so thank you for the opportunity, Tracy, and thank you for all the work that you're doing and keeping connections alive during this time of isolation and social distancing. And so really appreciate what you're doing. So the Daughters of the Vote was started by Equal Voice 3 years ago, and it was a simple idea of members of Parliament giving up their seats in the legislature or in the House of Commons for women to take their seat and have a one-day event where they could experience the life of a parliamentarian. And so that initiative has just caught fire, and I know many legislatures have copied initiatives similar to that. I know I've brought groups of young women into the Manitoba Legislative Assembly and given them the opportunity to sit in my chair and to have that opportunity to see what it's like as in some of these roles. I firmly believe that in order for a young girl to dream something, she has to be able to imagine it. And in order for her to be able to imagine it, she has to see role models living out potential careers that she may want to develop and pursue herself. And so it's really essential to getting young women thinking about a possible life in politics. And that's where Equal Voice is committed. They're a nonpartisan organization just saying to all women, young women across the country, hey, look at politics as a potential career. Now you may be wondering, why is there this push to get women in politics? And I can tell you, I have the statistics at the top of my head for the province, here in the province of Manitoba. And they're indicative of the realities across our entire nation in terms of numbers of women leaders versus men leaders in legislative roles. In the history of Manitoba, of course, we've been in Confederation for 150 years, and there have been roughly 800 men who have had the honor of representing a constituency as a Manitoba Legislative Assembly elected official. So almost 800 men. I was the 60th woman in this province's history to get elected to take a seat in the chamber and represent a community in the province of Manitoba. And then when you think about the number of women who have held positions in cabinet, I was the 33rd woman to ever be appointed to cabinet. So if you think about all the laws, all the regulations that govern our society, there have only been 33 women who have had a role in creating and shaping those laws versus over 100 men who have sat in cabinet over the years. And so, and those numbers are indicative of every other legislature. Canada, we've only had one female prime minister. Here in the province of Manitoba, we've not had a woman premier. We've only had one woman mayor. The numbers, whether at the civic level, provincial or federal level, are staggeringly shocking. And so Equal Voice is putting out this call and trying to get more women interested in politics. So this year, the Daughters of the Vote will take place in a very different way. They're still going to be proceeding with it. It will be a 3-day virtual event held next March 5th, 6th, and 7th. There's the push right now to find 338 women across the country between the ages of 19 and 27 who will fill the chamber virtually and experience life as a parliamentarian. They will also be taking part in workshops and panels and other key activities to gain practical understanding of what it means to be a lawmaker, what it means to be a parliamentarian or a legislator, and what politics is really all about. They will also learn about some of those barriers that women face in politics and how to address those barriers in an effective way and move beyond them.
Oh,
So
wow.
the call is open right now. The application deadline, I believe, is October 1st, so fast approaching. So thanks for getting me on your show so soon to share this good message. If you know women between the ages of 19 and 27, send them to equalvoice.ca. The application form is there, and tell them to put in their application. We're looking for 338 women to fill those seats for the upcoming year.
Oh, wow. And you know what, Rochelle, it is kind of, whether it might be a great time, as you're going to hear the stories from all of these women, I'm seeing a commonality, and it's about giving voice and making our voices heard in so many different ways. I really just think that this is an important thing. And as we always say, the future is our young people. So now is a time for them to have a say. And for yourself, Rochelle, I mean, you have overcome your own personal barriers and political barriers to get where you are today. So, you know, sharing your story is so important and enlightening too as well. And I know that it has spilled off onto all of the women, and it gives a different light onto what a politician is. You know, at the end of the day, we know that you're a human being, you're a person, you're a mom, you're a wife, you know, just like everybody else. And I think that you exude that, and that's why it's always great. So yes, we will try and get those numbers up. We will come back to you, and I want your input because, like I said before, all of these women today, their passion is about giving voice. So I'm gonna first of all go say hi to Diane, because I know we've been going back and forth and trying to get you back on the show. How is the Boldness Project? How has your community been in all of this pandemic? And now we're in Code Orange, and of course we'll talk about Code Orange too as well. So Diane, share your story.
Well, you know, I'm always, and I've shared with you before, I'm always super inspired and super impressed at, you know, our community's ability to persevere, to carry on, to make it through, and, you know, to sometimes get out on the other side of something with such grace and dignity. And so I do feel that seeing that now. And you know, there's some tough patches still, and there's challenges that people are facing still. But, you know, trying to be super adaptable and super responsive to all, you know, new challenges that we're all finding ourselves in. But I will say that, you know, at the beginning there in March, when all of it was happening, you know, there was a lot of people that wanted to have conversations either nationally or locally about what we were going through and what were the considerations and what were the things we needed to pay attention to. And as I was being asked to participate in some of those conversations, I really did feel like a lot of those conversations were not reflective of what I was hearing kind of in the North End and talking to parents that are you know, dealing with this pandemic in the North End. And really, I felt like our parents and our families were talking mostly about their children and just, you know, the considerations of, do I keep my kids in? Do I let them out? You know, people that sometimes don't have as many economic means. And so moving, you know, the world moving online, you know, people not having enough screens or not having good quality screens, not having access to Wi-Fi, not even having access to a quiet little corner to have a Zoom call or to do homework or to log on in a virtual way. So I really appreciated being invited into those conversations because I was able to talk about that when I felt like that wasn't really the thing that people were talking about in a broad way across Canada. So, and it just feels like, you know, and to maybe Ms. Squires' point there, you know, sort of women's voice or women's concerns. I mean, I think children are all of our concern, but certainly women carry that very significantly in the North End. And so those issues just weren't as front and center. And so again, that's the thing I like to talk about the most.
Well, no, and so I was going to ask you now, you know, the kids going back to school, and this has created a whole another mix of things. So I know they say we're all in this together, but we have talked about it, and you know, in many ways we aren't, but especially in the North End, I mean, it's the fear is there everywhere. I mean, confusion and, you know, feelings of discontent, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of anxiety out there about there's so much we don't know, and I think part of the anxiety gets linked to how some of us are resourced to deal with the pandemic and how some of us are not. And so, you know, there was one parent who talked about you know, having a sniffle or something like that, so she had to go get tested. And the instructions she was given after being tested, you know, in terms of what she was supposed to do after that, she actually just couldn't follow those directions because she lived in a household where she couldn't use a separate bathroom or couldn't, like, there's just too many kids living in the house with too many adults in the house. So she actually couldn't follow what was being told to her, what she would have to do waiting for her test to come back. And so I think a lot of the time our families feel super stressed that they're not able to follow what our health officers are telling us that we should be doing because they just don't have the resources.
Wow, well, it almost sounds like, you know, they need an outside source, right, to help them in that interim period. You know, if they have to self-isolate and they just can't, and but then what do they do if they're caregivers too, right? So there's, yeah, still a lot to work out on, and you know, we'll continue on with the conversation. I want to say hi to Marley. Thanks for joining, Marl. Thanks. So another great friend that I haven't seen for a long time, Pam. Thanks for joining us today, Pam. And again, you know, the theme is kind of, you know, getting our voices heard, and a little background on Pam, and she'll fill it out more. But she's created this incredible website. She herself is a former 911 call person. Help, you know, the first person that you hear on the phone when you have an emergency for many years. And this website that she has developed is all about helping those angels of emergency that, you know, suffer from the daily stresses of their own job. So that is a very vague thing. I want Pam to sort of talk about 911 for 911. You know, we had the conversation, and yeah, so how is that doing? And my goodness, you know, our first responders are probably inundated just as much as we are too with all of this.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was a 911 operator, dispatcher, and supervisor for the City of Winnipeg Police Service. And I did that for 20 and a half years. And when I left, I felt that, and it's something that's kind of felt throughout the industry of 911 dispatching, is that we're kind of the forgotten people in the whole process. We're the first person, for the most part, that a citizen hears when they're in crisis, but we're the forgotten piece because the police, firefighters, and paramedics are the ones that are actually seen during an event. They're the ones that are on the news, all that kind of thing. And we kind of don't get recognized for the job that they do, answering the phones and dispatching the events. And with everything that's going on behind the scenes, it can get pretty hectic sometimes. And so I created my website in hopes of being a place to recognize the emergency service operators first off, and then it also trickles down to the frontline members as well. But it's various products and services. I'm looking to start some speaking. I know I've said that before, Tracy, and that kind of got put on the wayside, but I'm looking at getting that back into it, especially now with everything. It's just really hard because services aren't bringing face-to-face people in and especially I know that they're not allowing people into the comm center here. So to do some things virtually could work, but it's still not the same as having the impact of face-to-face and being able to work with them in a smaller group and going through all of that together, just feeling that energy together in the room. But that's basically the overarching theme behind my business there, is just to bring recognition and support to those people who are the first responders in an emergency event.
Well, and if you can share, I mean, a very powerful story, your own personal story of the many years that you were taking that first call, and you described it. You hear everything, but you don't know what happens, and that can really, really eat at you. And there is a story of you personally where you probably still do have a hard time going by a certain area of town.
Oh yeah, there's a few places, but yeah, basically when you're dealing with the event, you're immersed in it for the first few minutes, if that, even because sometimes even that's a long time to be on the phone. Or if you're on dispatch, you're in it for the amount of time. But when an event ends, it's like reading a storybook, but the last chapter or two being ripped out of the book, so you don't know the ending of the story. When something is happening, we have to keep going on. The officers or firefighters or paramedics, that's where they are for the entirety of the event. But we still have to answer the other calls. We have to dispatch the other events. There's so much going on that we just don't know the ending. And when we come back the next day or to the next shift, we don't have time to read the reports. Some of the reports are closed. There's certain things that we can't get. So it's like you're left dangling. You can see the carrot, but you can't quite reach it because you don't know. And yes, there are certain places in the city where I drive by, and the first thing, it's just an automatic reaction, is that this is what happened here, and either a positive or negative association related to that, and then it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, but back to reality here. So yeah, it's it's hard to discuss some things because you still can't, due to confidentiality and things, but certain areas, certain buildings, certain intersections, Assiniboine Park, whether it be Overdale and Portage or the actual park itself, there's certain things that are very that trigger thoughts and emotions and events there. Yeah, so having been in the job for over 20 years, there's places all over the city that bring back memories, and they kind of stay with you. I say we kind of lock them in the vault of our mind, but they do peek themselves out every once in a while, and they basically stay with you for life.
Wow. Well, you know what, Pam, I think, certainly the more you can get your services out there, I think, especially now in this time, right, where it is so, everybody's on edge and everything like that. But I guess I'll get Marley and Eileen now into all of this. Eileen's going to share her story, and I guess maybe it's a nice segue, Eileen, because in Pam's case, the last chapter was ripped out of her story, but we might say that it was so hopeful and so wonderful that your final chapter was written in your story, and then where it has taken you today. So just put this all into context for the rest of the ladies. Marley, it was, I guess, Winnipeg is 6 or 7 degrees, right, of people being connected. And Marley says you just have to have this amazing woman on your show. She's got this incredible story. Some of you might know of her story already. To get a fuller view, I would encourage all of you to go on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and go on to Verified. And the first chapter is called Maria. There's 10 episodes. I know there's more, but Eileen is one of the ladies. I don't want to say that featured ladies is the right term, but one of the brave ladies that came forward to share her story. So thank you, Marley. I mean, we'll get you into the conversation later on because I think we can all kind of relate a little bit in any kind of aspects of what Eileen did on her great girl trip to Italy. So yeah, if you can share your story now, Eileen. You just have to press mute. Excuse me.
There we go. You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the generous introduction. I really appreciate it. And Marley, thank you so much too. It's a pleasure to speak to you guys at Hugh. I'll just go a little bit into my story and then allow for questions or anything like that. But back in 2013, I was traveling Italy, Padova with my best friend, and we were couch surfing. And there we stayed with a host named Maglio, and he was actually a police officer at the time, and we were very young and just excited about this trip. So he offered us a place to stay, and we decided to take him up on it through the couchsurfing website. And on the second night, he drugged and sexually assaulted us. And we fled from his place the very next morning once we woke up. And within a few days, I waited a few days because I was still in shock, but I reported it on his couchsurfing profile. And immediately, I'm telling you, there was several girls writing back to me saying, you know, the same thing happened to me, the same thing happened to me. And it was devastating and shocking and terrifying. One of the girls, who is now one of my friends, Maria, so she got in touch with me and she said, we have to do something about this. And I said, yeah, I think we do have to do something about this, but like, what can we do? We can go to the cops. So I actually me and my friend reported this in Austria. That was the next place we went to after Italy. And the police were not helpful there. They basically said, you know, because we were not Austrian citizens and the crime didn't happen in Austria, there was nothing that they could do besides take down a report. So we decided that we'd all report it in our home cities. And it was really hard for the Winnipeg police to be able to take on my case because it was international. So we kept on fighting. Maria got in touch with IRPI, which is an investigating reporting project Italy. So they're a not-for-profit journalism team, and they actually took our stories. They released it worldwide back in 2016, I believe. And then from there, they worked with us. They paired us up with a team of lawyers. We all went down to court in 2019. We fought against Maglio together. And from there, I kind of started my public speaking. And then I got more involved in the community with mental health because I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So I wanted to give back to women, and I wanted to give back to mental health. And so now I'm working with Mood Disorders Association of Manitoba, and I just got a promotion to the Women's Programming Coordinator here. So I'm very excited. So yeah.
I mean, I listened to the podcast. So she does briefly go over it, but all of my questions, yeah, like how do you even escape? But I mean, but how devious this person was, and all the stories the same. And then it was just like, well, how could you not believe all of these women telling the same story? Mm-hmm. And then as a parent or as an older generation, well, what is couch surfing? And like, you want to go into a stranger's home and sleep on their couch? And but for all of the verified or the people out there, most have a good experience. And and hearing about the actual person who started it all, it was just clearly a cheap way, maybe a more creative way of traveling, because you get to stay with the local, you get to share their food, they know the city, so they can take you around. And so yeah, all those questions. But I don't know if any of the ladies, and Marley, thank you too. And maybe too, I just want to make that connection, Eileen, I believe Marley was your dance teacher.
Yeah, she was for years and years. Yeah.
And how did dance sort of help you, I guess, in all of this, or were you still dancing at that point?
I wasn't dancing at the point, but besides post-traumatic stress disorder, I do suffer with some mental illnesses. Thankfully, they're all in recovery now and I'm doing much better. But I did suffer with them, and dance helps a lot, especially the style lyrical, I would say, for me personally, because it allows you to express your emotions and tell a story. We actually incorporated dance in mood disorders. We had a youth program. It was a MAD camp, it was called, for music, art, and dance. So we incorporated dance for the younger kids to, learn how to express their emotions and to feel a story and to get it out there. And I believe dance is a beautiful way of kind of just feeling your emotions and expressing yourself.
Wow.
And it brought us all back sort of together. I just want to like jump in. But Eileen came back to our dance school to use the studio for choreographing for her students. So that was really, really awesome to see. And then all of the girls, all of us, like from Eileen's group, we got together and I started a team for the Run for Women marathon. So we all ran a 5K together in tutus.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Use myself right now. I apologize. Okay. I have a 12 o'clock that I need to go, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for letting me be here today. Thank you, Eileen, for sharing your story, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Where can I find the podcast?
On Stitcher or Apple? Stitcher or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, and it's on Spotify as
too.
Well.
Okay, I'm going to listen to your podcast, Eileen. I think that's remarkable. Ladies, it was such a wonderful pleasure to meet all of you, Pam and Diane, and sorry, I didn't even get to meet you, Marissa?
Marley.
Very nice to meet all of you. Tracy, thank you for having me here today. I'll see
Daughters
you again.
of the Vote, Daughters of the Vote, October 1st, equalvoice.ca. There we go.
Bye, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I was going to ask you, Marley, how did you feel when you heard about Eileen's experience? Because you knew her, as a student and as a young person.
I think it's always really devastating to hear any story like that. But when you think of someone that specifically for, long time, it really hits you that much harder. And we're, and I mean, it's awful that it happens to anyone. But then you start thinking like, well, how great Eileen is and how beautiful of a dancer she is and how sweet she is. And she was in Disney, like she worked for Disney World. Like that is her persona. She's happy, beautiful, smart, strong. So then that hits you harder because of all of her these positive attributes. I think one of the immediate things that I thought of was also the stigma around sexual assault. Mm-hmm. And that there probably still remains to this day stigma around sexual assault, which is horrifying. There are how many women involved in this case, and yet how hard they had to fight to get anyone to really listen to them is devastating. So, and the other thing is the whole issue of mental health and post-traumatic stress and the stigma related to post-traumatic stress. It's not real. It's just made up, and that type of language associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. So that also sort of comes to mind when I think of this story, and then the fact that Eileen is now working to, you know, bring to light issues of mental health for women and youth, it's so powerful. Like, it's so powerful. It brings me to tears every time I think about it, every time I see her.
Well, I mean, it's the future too, and you think about the young ones, and you think about your own daughter, right? You just have to,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I want to bring Pam and Diane into all of this, because I know that for every one brave woman like Eileen and those 13 other women that share their story, there's hundreds that don't. And in this day and age, what is it? Like, how do we create that safe space, right? And I think it's kind of been two words that have been used a lot, but it means so much, and it means so many different things to so many people. So Diane, I mean, it's, yeah, it's pretty hard to hear, but I'm sure you've heard a lot.
Well, and that is, you know, the nature of really everything, right? In that, in the face of such great adversity and challenge, you know, people do rise to that. And so, you know, Eileen's strength and her actions after, you know, this horrible, you know, event that has happened to her and to these women, really do create a pathway and a sense of, I think, hope and action for the rest of us. And, you know, we are in this era of, you know, the Me Too environment. We're seeing some very high profile situations, you know, with like the Roger Ailes and the Weinstein and the Epstein, just how society has allowed this predatory behavior to go on for like, and it's not just one episodic event, you know, it's like in Eileen's case, many women that this has happened to by the same person. And how is it that we allow, you know, this to, we have conditions. And so how are we as women, and it's not just women, I mean, it's men too, right? Like, how are we able to create the safety of being able to come forward and talk about your experience and the effects of what has happened, because that's ongoing. And, you know, again, Eileen has said that she's, you know, really doing some good things right now, but I'm sure some of that stuff is you're going to carry a lot of that for a long time. And as we listen to women's stories, you know, it's a challenge, and they continue to carry that for a long time. So, you know, just the more we can create the conditions for that support and for that healing, I think is important. I do want to say that, you know, speaking as an Indigenous First Nations woman and doing a lot of work in the inner city, you know, the ongoing, again, the injustice of it, right? The ongoing nature is that so many of our families in the inner city fear for their children every single day. And it's the microaggressions and it's the ongoing nature of that fear. You know, when we talk to our parents who live in some of our inner city neighborhoods, they talk about knowing which cars are circling the neighborhood and which license plates belong and which ones don't belong. And really they're here looking for our kids, and they're trolling, and, you know, and so that whole trafficking and everything else is an ongoing reality for many of us in this city. And so we do have to keep vigilant, and we do have to keep just really being aware that it's not just that one time that one thing happened. Like, it's every single day. So many of our families are having to wake up and be on guard to try to prevent this from happening. So again, I think I always feel I double down my effort when I hear these inspiring stories and I see the strength of other people who are able to stand up and speak out. And so that just gives me courage as well. So the bravery is so needed. So I want to say that to Eileen directly, that, you know, your bravery, it means something to a lot of us.
No. Yeah. Eileen, and then this will kind of segue into Pam. And I don't know if I can mention this, but I mean, it was in your podcast, it was in the updates. I really loved your speech, was amazing. It's just Eileen and Kate is another survivor. And you were both interviewed on how you were moving forward. And this was so eloquent. I think you should run for mayor, but I mean, as Rochelle was saying, like we have a lack of women, but all being able to have a voice, and how great would it be to have someone to speak on what these parents are going through in the North End, like, you know, and Diane, we need to hear these things too, because, you know, as we are all living in our bubble, we're living in even more of a bubble that we don't even see outside anymore. And we only hear what's on social media and what's on the news. And this is what I was always hoping for and a dream of in this platform. And if hopefully we can get it into something more and bigger, is to hear all these real stories, to hear how Pam is a 911 operator, and we don't know like these people at all. So if you could talk to a little bit more on your restorative justice and what that all means for you, Eileen, and what you're trying to do, which is super cool.
Yeah, so for restorative justice, I was referring to more supports for women. So when we hear of justice, we're only really dealing with the initial, like, okay, this person did a wrong, so they're gonna go to jail, which he is not even in jail right now. He is under house arrest in Italy. So we haven't even gotten that justice. But restorative justice is more for the victim or the survivor. And it's more at looking at ways that we can help them. So for example, there's Victim Services Canada, which has given me some money for supports. For example, they've paid for massages for me, because when you have PTSD, you constantly have like tension in your shoulders, neck, and back, and it really, really affects you. Like there's days where I would wake up back. This happened 7 years ago, I should say. So there's been days in the past where I would wake up and it was hard to get out of bed because I carried so much tension in me because I was keeping the secret piled up and suffering alone. And so Victim Services Canada gave me some money to get massages. That was a part of the agreement. But we need more restorative justice. Like we need services, like we need a psychologist or a counselor, you know, and that's not really being offered. You have to really seek out resources in the community for yourself. There's no one there right away to help you right when I reported it. It would have been nice to have somebody say, okay, you're a sexual assault survivor, so we're going to take you through the steps of what you do. Here is the reporting stage. Now what else can we look at? You need a counselor. Okay, here's a counselor. Okay, how else is it affecting your life? So that's kind of what I was referring to for restorative justice, is getting more supports for survivors who are suffering this, because we didn't ask for it. It happened to us. And now, for example, I've lost so much money for flights and for court fees, you know, and I've missed work because of it, because I was so sick. And there's so much more than just and I'm saying just, but like there's so much more than the trauma that initially happens to the survivor. So it'd just be helpful to listen to survivors more, and then to fund our society properly and give out those resources. But that's what I was talking about with restorative justice.
No, it was very good. And are you still in touch with Kate at all, or?
I am. Yes. Yeah. We're still in touch.
Oh, good. And she's doing okay? And Maria too?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. They're doing good.
Oh, yeah. So Pam, I mean, 911, 911 is sort of like what Eileen was talking about. Maybe not justice, but just sort of restorative or, you know, therapeutic, right? Once you transition out of that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, the whole reason behind it was on a person's worst day to let them know that they are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And initially it was for the emergency services field, but as I talked to people and, you know, listened to stories like Eileen's, and others, I feel that there's certain parts of it that can be brought forward to other areas as well, especially when it comes to my You Are Not Alone line, my Yana line.
Mm-hmm.
It's for people who have been through trauma of some sort, and just realizing that even on your darkest day, when it's the hardest to get up and get out of bed, or you feel like there's nobody around, that there is somebody else who unfortunately has gone through something. It might not be exactly the same as what you've gone through, but something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that are out there who are willing to support you and reach out their hands to help you in whatever way they can. And, you know, some of the programs that I want to offer and the talks that I want to offer can, you know, reach more than just the emergency services. But it ties in that way too, because, you know, we hear all these stories, and sometimes it's like when Eileen gets back from somewhere, it's a time has passed since the event happened, or we're on the line as it's happening or after it's just happened, and you're hearing that absolute terror in, you know, a female's voice. And there's not, you know, we have to be the support line there for them, and you don't want to get pulled in too much, but call after call and story after story like that, it you know, it affects us to some degree as well, even though we haven't physically felt and gone through what a person has. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways that, you know, we need to, as women, offer support to others and see if there's ways that we can work together, help together, do something so that whatever, you know, the issue may be, that, you know, they know that you're not alone in whatever your journey, whatever path you're on.
Yeah. Well, I encourage you, all of you women, if you can, write down your websites. You know, Diane, your Boldness Project, and Pam, 911, and then Eileen, share the mood disorders, and then, you know, at least you have the websites and emails. And as I think the three of you could probably collaborate on something very, very, very good for our communities. And so now it draws me to the conclusion of Code Orange. Yeah, I don't know. Has it changed anything for you, or is it just sort of the same? Marley.
I think the one thing it changed for parents is a little bit more anxiety. I think it's created more anxiety for how we're going to navigate life. So I can't imagine when you're facing different socioeconomic challenges and barriers, you know, how it would cause that much more anxiety for you know, those parents. So I mean, this is at the beginning of all of this. My head didn't go to, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the virus. I gotta protect my family with the virus. My head was, what are we gonna do with all of our families and children that are, you know, facing socioeconomic barriers and challenges? Some do not have, who do not have homes, or who are couch surfing. So in our population of homelessness in Winnipeg, and I mean in other cities too, but because we have our climates are so different in Winnipeg, couch surfing, it is a thing. When folks don't have a place to stay, they do typically, not typically, but couch surfing is still one of those options. So, you know, if they don't have the $12 or whatever to pay to Salvation Army to stay a night, then they might be couch surfing on someone's couch, and then they go to someone's couch the next day. So that is a reality that we, you know, our fellow citizens face. And then how do we navigate all of that? How are all the systems not, you know, working together and needing to work together to help those in need. So anyways, that's a long drawn out answer. I'm sorry, but mine is twofold, always twofold, because I always think of everyone else.
Everyone else.
Yeah.
Diane.
Oh, well, you know, again, I feel there's some drawbacks, and then yet there's also some positives in this, in that I have children, and so my children are in school, and you know, at the beginning of September, getting ready to go into the schools and doing orientations and what have you, I was able to go in and see what the schools have actually done and how they're going to be, you know, running the day-to-day with the kids in the classrooms. So I felt like very impressed with what school divisions have done, you know, in terms of really trying to ensure safety for our kids. So I felt a level of, I don't know, and I think a lot of what we're talking about, some basic human needs, are to have a sense of safety and security. And if we can find all the different ways, because there's lots of different ways to try to create senses of safety and security. And our panelists today were talking about a lot of their efforts are around, you know, healing or restorative kinds of initiatives. So I think that's really great. So the school was able to really alleviate some of my fears and insecurities around, you know, what's going to happen with the kids. So when Code Orange was you know, announced, I kind of felt like it was so focused on bar hopping and restaurants, and I just thought, oh well, my kids are in school, and you know, that's where my focus is whether or not there's going to be transmission within schools. But I am concerned about, you know, the testing capacity. I'm concerned about hospital capacity, and so I do feel like, you know, in the school systems, if one kid has the symptoms, you know, then all the kids got to get tested, or, you know, and then you got to self-isolate, and all those, you know, all the things kick in. So I'm definitely anxious about what if some of that happens. But I also feel I'm more equipped with information now, and I'm more equipped with, like, I actually have hand sanitizer now, and I actually have some wipes now. Before, in March, I didn't have any of that, and I couldn't get any of that, and I went out and stocked up again on Sunday just in case, you know. You know, so I stocked up on my tissue papers and things like that. So I just feel a little bit more prepared this time than say the first time. So that's the positive of it. But yeah, I think part of, again, the anxiety for a lot of people is really about the duration. Like, we just don't know how long this is going to, how long we're going to have to deal with this. I feel that's the thing that weighs on people so much, right? I think we feel more equipped to deal with short-term emergencies. Like, we feel like we can deal and adapt and get through that, you know, fairly decently. But it's the duration of this pandemic that, you know, that we're in a marathon versus a sprint here. I think that's the thing that really weighs on people's minds.
Yeah, no doubt too. And I mean, we were fortunate over the summer of having like a few, you know, a series of days with no cases. And I think that's when everybody let their guard down, and, you know, it's beautiful to be outside and, you know, reconnecting with people, and the people concept, right, of seeing people is so important. And yeah, I guess we just have to use our common sense, rely on that and the information that is there for us. But, you know, and Pam too, I mean, you know, it's been a crazy time for you too as well, right? Because you were working for the Winnipeg Airport Authority too.
Yeah, I was, and I haven't been there since the end of April, I guess. With all that is going on, travel kind of almost came to a standstill. So that made a lot of us get laid off. And now with, you know, everything being extended, there's kind of an uncertainty there. But for me, I tried to look at it as a time that I could work on some other projects that I had going on. I wasn't going to let it get me down, or just become a bump on a log, you know, or kind of hold myself up in my apartment here. I wanted to use the time to benefit myself and others if I could, in a way. And so that's where I've been kind of working, you know, behind the scenes on some other projects and things. So yeah, it's kind of scary again now that the numbers keep rising. And I think just like Diane said, it's just the uncertainty of the length and how long it's going to go on and everything like that. And the financial situation for people, if they don't have a job or they get laid off again and all that, weighs heavily on people. And so, yeah, it's hopefully, things will get back to a somewhat more calm level of things, and we'll be able to get back to where it was before over the summer, where we could at least go out and see some people and everything. But we just got to take care of ourselves and just be considerate of others. People, that whole mask controversy, but it may not be for yourself, it may be for the person that you're walking by in the store or something. You don't know their situation, their family situation, so you just have to be empathetic to others around you and do it for them as much as for yourself.
Well, no, well said. And that certainly is always a point of discussion. Eileen, I was wondering too now, I mean, entering into 2020 after all of the things that you had gone through over the last couple of years with the trial and traveling, and then boom, COVID and pandemic, back in isolation. Was that hard for you after, because there is a sense of, well, obviously you talked about relief and he was convicted, maybe not, under the terms that were ideal, but it was a victory. There's definitely a sort of sense of celebration or a little bit of elation. So how was 2020 now been for you mentally?
Yeah, I think like what Pam was saying about just doing your own projects behind the scenes, that seemed to really help me. I also have a YouTube channel. So when this first started happening, the whole self-isolation thing was a huge topic. And I talked about that because I can relate a lot to self-isolation, just dealing with my trauma and, feeling alone in it. So I felt like I was a self-isolation queen. Like I knew what to do. I knew what kept me busy, what I enjoyed doing, what was good for my mental health. So I released a few YouTube videos on that. So personally, it's scary, definitely. And there's a lot of anxiety. And I face anxiety with COVID-19 for sure, like everybody else. But just keeping busy, like Pam said, on behind the scenes and doing your own projects, and also with mood disorders, that has really helped me too. Because of Code Orange, there's only allowed to be 10 people indoors now, so that has affected us a lot. So for our groups, like our women's wellness group, we had to reduce the number to only 8 participants with 2 facilitators. So we're working around it. We're also looking to launch a new website and to have online resources available for the public. So that's in the works, but I think we just have to be as adaptable as possible during this time, because you're right, we don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah, no. Well, I guess as long as we don't go to Code Red, which apparently Quebec and Montreal have, so that would be, well, it would wreck our whole economy, shutting down the restaurants and all of small businesses again. So hopefully everybody, we can, wear our masks, groups of 10 or less, and cross our fingers, we'll get out of this October, because I guess we're locked down, for the month, as we're all nodding our heads. Well, you know what? So I want to say so much, Eileen, it's amazing. And I know that you're going to be doing even better things. So let's reconnect, definitely. If you want to share your YouTube channel too on the chat box. So that'll be great too. And we'll send that out. And Diane, it's always great. And I still want to do that. Come to your neighborhood and do a chat. And maybe we should work on just a virtual chat too. But I really would love, to get I think a better awareness of the different communities and how, like I said, we live in our little bubbles, but this is a bubble that needs to be burst, and probably maybe in this time that we're all kind of in angst, it might be a good time to kind of, you know, open the eyes and start the conversations too. Because I think at the end of the day, we can all really help each other, if only just to learn what another family is experiencing, I think is really, really important. And Pam, you'll keep us in the know and everything like that. I think you and Eileen should connect, because I think there's a really good synergy of what you can offer and what Eileen is trying to work towards too as well. So thank you so much, everybody, and stay safe. Marley, I want a sparkle mask. Can you make me a sparkle mask? I'm sure you could find something with bling on it.
Oh, I have a good option for you. Tassels and pearls.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. But it's only good to be on your face for like about 10 minutes, right?
And then it's like, then you're sweating.
Yeah, then you're just sweating. Okay. Thank you, dear. I can hardly wait. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll talk
Thank you.
soon.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye, Eileen.
Thanks so much.
Bye.